Okay, the next thing I'd like to do is as we walk out this door, I want us to walk into a zone and play a sort of victory sound there. So I'm going to make another sort of trigger collider. In this case, I will just duplicate the existing one that's sort of inside the room, and then slide it out here. And then I'm going to delete the parts of the components it has that are irrelevant. So it doesn't need light on, door closed. So I'm removing that. It doesn't need a reverb zone, so I'm removing that. And it still should be a trigger. So if we manage to successfully walk into this space, that means we got out of the escape room, and it means I want to play a sound. So like when we walked into the room and made a short script to notice that we had collided with a trigger and then turned something on. In that case, it was a light and some doors. We're going to write a short script again here, this time to play audio. Okay, so let's move this collider out of the parent object room, and it'll just sort of be its own thing, and I'm going to call it Win Collider because it's the collider that you collide with when you've won. And we're going to create a new C# script. So go in your scripts folder, right click, and create C# script. And I'm going to make one called Win Sound. Okay, so this is Win Sound, and this is based very heavily on what we did in a previous tutorial, which was like the light on script. So the only differences here are our variable is no longer a light. In this case, it's a public audio source, and that's audio with a capital A and source with a capital S. And then we're just going to name that variable and just following conventions. I'm naming the variable audio source, but with a lowercase a and a capital S. So this is like Unity realizing it's looking for an audio source. This is just my name. I could have called it anything. Then we call the function on trigger enter, and on trigger enter expects to see a collider. And in this case, I'm following this convention of calling the collider other, because the collider is the other object's collider. So when the other object collides with this trigger, which is going to be on this object, we want to play an audio source. And in particular, we want to check a couple of things before we do that, because basically we don't want anything to count. We only want it to count when the player walks in. So we've made an if statement. So if other dot tag equals quotes player, then we're going to play the audio source. So if the game object that walks in is tagged player, then we're going to play this audio source. But there's more to this, as you can see. This is just a little check so that we don't continually try to play the sound again and again and get like a hiccupy like start because we keep entering the trigger. So this is checking not only is the tag player, it's also checking, and the and is saying like not and or, but like it must be both. It's checking if the audio source is not playing. And the way we read that is the exclamation point means not. So audio source dot is playing, which is like a function that we can check, has been negated with the exclamation mark. And so that's basically saying if the thing that walks in is the player and you're not already playing audio, then play the audio. But if either of these isn't true, if it's like the wall's colliding with it, or we have collided and it's already playing and we collided again, then don't play again. So that's the extra piece of code here, is just checking a couple of things so the audio doesn't trigger a million times in a row. with that, we should be able to jump back to Unity. And when we put Win Sound on our Win Collider, then we just need to hook up our audio source. So I'm going to put the audio source on this Win Collider object as well. And so I can either add a component with a blank audio source, or I can just go into audio and put it directly into the inspector. So my Win sound is this ta-da sound. So I'm going to drag it over here. It's not going to play on awake because we want it to only happen when that script calls for it. It doesn't need to be in reverb zones, and it doesn't need to be spatial. So everything else should be good. So then finally, we're going to drag Win Collider in as the audio source. So it's the game object that has the audio source that we want to play. Then if we check our work, okay, that was our goal.